The night changed everything before I even realized it had begun, because sometimes a single request can carry the weight of years of silence, buried feelings, and promises never spoken. One moment I was standing in the quiet glow of a rented cabin in northern Colorado, listening to the wind brush, pine needles against the window. And the next I was staring at the person who had been my anchor for nearly a decade, knowing that whatever happened after this would never let us return to who we were before. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet moments that test the human heart, take a second right now to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. My name is Nathan Caldwell, and for most of my adult life, I believed I understood loyalty. I grew up in a small town outside of Fort Collins, raised by a mother who worked double shifts at a diner, and a father who taught me that keeping your word mattered more than comfort. When I met my best friend, Grace Whitaker, during our freshman year at Colorado State University, loyalty became more than a value. It became a way of breathing. We studied together, struggled together, celebrated together. When my mother passed away unexpectedly during my junior year, it was Grace who slept on the floor of my apartment for a week so I would not be alone. When her engagement fell apart 2 years later, I drove across 3 states to bring her home without asking a single question. We told each other everything except the one truth that hovered between us like a fragile glass ornament, beautiful and dangerous all at once. Life pulled us in different directions after college, but it never managed to pull us apart. I stayed in Colorado, building a modest career as a civil engineer, while Grace moved to Seattle and then back to the Midwest, chasing jobs that never quite felt like home. We talked almost every day. We visited when we could. We laughed about how people always assumed we were together, and we corrected them with the same well-practiced line about being just friends. Somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that just friends was enough, because wanting more felt selfish, and risking what we had felt impossible. The cabin trip was supposed to be simple, a quiet winter getaway, a favor, really, because Grace had been spiraling after losing her job in Chicago and ending another relationship that left her doubting her worth. She needed space, she said. She needed air. I offered the cabin my uncle owned near Estes Park, and I offered to drive because that is what best friends do. Snow fell steadily as we arrived, wrapping the world in silence. Inside, the cabin smelled like cedar and old memories, and for the first time in months, Grace looked like she could finally breathe. That night, the power went out during a storm, leaving us with candles and the soft crackle of the fireplace. The shadows made the room feel smaller, more intimate, and every laugh carried a tremor I could not ignore. I felt it then, the strain of holding back something that had been pressing against my chest for years. I reminded myself of boundaries, of respect, of the promise I had silently made to never be the reason Grace regretted trusting me. But pain has a way of loosening the knots we tie around our hearts. Grace was tired, emotionally and physically, worn down by disappointment and the constant fear of starting over alone. As the night deepened, the air between us grew heavy with unspoken truths. When she finally looked at me with eyes full of exhaustion and hope tangled together, I realized how fragile we both were. The request she made was not about desire alone. It was about fear, about needing to feel chosen, about asking the one person she trusted most not to leave her alone in the dark. I did not answer right away. Inside me, every warning bell rang at once. I thought about the morning after, about the possibility of losing her forever, about how crossing that line could rewrite our entire story. I thought about my father's voice, steady and firm, reminding me that the right choice is often the hardest one. And yet, I also thought about the way Grace's hands trembled, about how loneliness can echo louder than reason, about how sometimes love shows up not as a grand declaration but as a quiet willingness to stay. That night tested everything I believed about love and restraint. I chose to stay present, to hold space without taking what was not mine to take. I chose honesty over impulse, compassion over fear. We talked until the fire burned low, not in dramatic confessions, but in raw truths about regret, about dreams deferred, about the exhaustion of pretending to be unbreakable. Somewhere between candlelight and snowfall, something shifted. Not because we crossed a line, but because we finally acknowledged how close we had always been to it. The morning came softly, sunlight spilling across the snow like forgiveness. Grace looked calmer, steadier, as if releasing the weight she had been carrying allowed her to stand taller. We made coffee, moved slowly, and let the quiet speak for us. There was no awkwardness, no shame, only a deeper understanding of each other and of ourselves. I realized then that real love is not proven by what you take, but by what you are willing to protect, even when it costs you. In the weeks that followed, Grace found her footing again. She took a job in Denver, close enough for Sunday dinners and spontaneous hikes. Our friendship did not shatter. It strengthened. The honesty we shared that night became the foundation for something healthier, something rooted in mutual respect rather than unspoken longing. Over time, the tension softened into clarity, and the affection we had always buried began to breathe in the open, slowly and carefully, without fear. Months later, standing on a ridge overlooking the Rockies as the sun dipped below the horizon, I understood that patience is not the absence of desire but the presence of trust. What we build with care lasts longer than what we grab in desperation. Grace smiled more these days. I did too. We were no longer hiding from what we felt, but we were also no longer rushing toward it blindly. We had learned that timing matters, and so does intention. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of someone you love or a choice you once faced, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps these stories reach the people who need them most. And before this story ends, I ask you one special thing. Leave a comment below sharing a moment when you chose patience over impulse or kindness over fear. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stay when leaving would be easier, and sometimes the strongest love is the one that waits.